Good evening. It's Thursday, the 4th of June, 2020. It's Thursday night, and it means you're watching Broadsheet on the telly. You're very welcome to join us tonight and on this day, still in lockdown in the wonderful year of 2020. Joining me tonight on the panel, as always, we have the Queen of Dublin 12, Vanessa Foran. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everyone. Queen of Dublin 12.
Very
lovely to be disgusted at that.
Very queen-like in how you address us, and the king of Silicon Valley, or the Irish chieftain of Silicon Valley, Derek O'Donoghue.
I take chieftain, although I think America could have a king sooner rather than we think.
A king.
The looks like King Donald is like setting his plan in motion.
We'll get to that. We do have we are going to be going to New York very soon. Very soon. We've got. I think we're going to be going to New York. We're going to go straight to New York while we have a live opportunity. Vanessa, do you want to intro?
Yeah, I'll intro. Hi, John. You ready to go?
Let me get the mute button, V. Let me get the mute.
Hi, everybody. You know Johnny Hampton's our man in New York. He's actually on the parade there now in, or not the parade, the protest that's just traveled across from Manhattan on Brooklyn Bridge. And you're about to go into Brooklyn. Is that right, Johnny? Johnny, you can turn off the mute now.
Okay, we're just going over the map. We just crossed over the Brooklyn Bridge, and now we're heading to City Hall. City Hall is just downtown here. That's Manhattan, and that's Brooklyn. So I'm at the back of the protest, and the main protest we're coming into now. It's been totally peaceful so far.
Any sing-song?
They just keep saying hello to the NYPD, yeah.
All right. Okay.
What they're singing is "fuck the police." How do you spell racist? NYPD. NYPD suck my dick. There's a combination, but it's peaceful.
Okay, so they've localized it.
I'm gonna mute you and walk into the middle of the crowd and then walk out so you can see it. Okay.
Okay, great. So it sounds there like they've sort of personalized it. What to do, Derek? I tell you, the weather's great.
It is.
Johnny, it doesn't look like there's much of a police presence. Can you kind of tell us what you've seen so far, how the police has...
No, they come in from the sides. There was a lot of trouble last night. They came an hour after the curfew of 8 to 9, and they moved in the Cardman Plaza where this one started, and they used batons and broke it up. I'll post you a link to the live, or some of the feed from it. So the governor today announced an investigation, and the mayor turned up at the memorial for George, but he was booed and everybody turned their back at him. And de Blasio is from Brooklyn, and he's a sort of social equity minority mayor, as a counterweight to Bloomberg, and his people feel like he let him down. So this is a typical protest now, okay?
It's just getting very real there now, isn't it?
So there's the cops there. So they stand on the sidelines.
Yeah.
So people are trying to social distance. So this is where it is here now. So this is City Hall
City
now.
Hall, yeah.
Yeah, and that's downtown. There's the financial district. So you're asking me, I'm at the end of it now. This is the front of it. We're coming up there now.
I'm going to go off the point there. Is that record shop still there, the C&D record shop?
They've all closed, I think, all the record stores, Steve.
I
don't think there's any of them left here. So this is basically...
That seems pretty good natured, though.
Very peaceful.
Any celebrities, Johnny?
You can't see them with the mask, Steve. We're pretty quiet. It has been quiet. The only problem has been when the police have come here.
Has any policeman got sticky with you, no?
No, what they do is they roll up beside you at night. They tell you to move back. It's like, it's tough because, you know, there is quite a lot of provocation in fairness as well. So what they've done is they're breaking up the crowds into smaller groups to manage them. So I've now left one group behind and I'm walking down the gauntlet of cops to the main protest area. That was the bridge area. So they've cordoned off all the streets. They've, they call it, you know, the chopper's up there. And that's behind. There's one group of protesters, but I cut through and I'm walking down the street to the main part here. Now, you won't be able to.
Okay, we've lost. Oh, there we have you again. Do you know?
You'll
Do you
be
know
able to hear
what's
me now in
close to
about
there?
2 seconds.
Yeah, Johnny. Do you know what?
21 is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Do you know what's close to there now as well? Is 1PP, One Police Plaza is there at that stop.
Yeah.
So, is there any action going on there?
You said there wasn't many police, did you?
No, I'm saying, is there any? Is there any sort of?
They're keeping everybody closed off.
Okay.
So what they're doing is they're breaking all the groups up into smaller groups by stopping them. They're allowing people to march. Like this is the march here. I'm just happen to be on the front of it.
Okay. So I mean, it's effectively crowd management that they've enforced.
Yeah. I mean, there's 2.5 million people in Brooklyn. There's only 8,000 NYPD cops, so they got to do something.
Yeah.
But
Any horses?
Everybody. They haven't had them in Brooklyn. They've had them in Manhattan, but they're here now. So this is where everybody's heading here, which is the courthouse, which is the protest about justice. So this is the United States courthouse here, and this is the senior brass. Now this will be the senior brass of the NYPD. If they're wearing a white shirt, they're a lieutenant or higher, and they command a division. So they're out in the crowd to watch their guys and instruct their guys. So the guy leading is the captain. So that's senior management. That's the courthouse. You know, you don't get in their face with a camera. If you do, you know they don't like it. But just do this, they're okay.
Okay,
group here.
Johnny, I'm just going to pause you for a moment. Just keep the footage coming. I just want to say hi to John, okay?
All right, call me later.
Okay, thanks. No, stay where you are. Oh, he's gone. Hey, John Ryan, everybody. John Ryan lives.
John Ryan.
He's gone. Hello.
He's going to come back. I'll get him back. Don't worry.
Hello.
Hey, John Ryan lives, everybody. You see, you didn't believe me.
He's back.
Can we get Johnny back?
Yeah, we will. Just you say hi to everybody. And you've met Derek before. I don't know.
No, nice to meet you, John.
Very nice to meet you, Derek.
You're the host.
Been listening to the last few weeks. Neil, hello.
Welcome back, John. The GoFundMe worked. Obviously, we sent you lots of money to get you back on the air. I guess, how's life in lockdown for you, John?
I'm in Barcelona, and very strange the first couple of months. A lot of deaths and very surreal atmosphere, and then in the past 3 weeks or so, it's kind of come back to life, and people are on the terraces now, and so it's sort of coming back to life, but very, very, very odd here.
You're entering phase 3 now, I think, is it, of the Spanish lockdown? Is it phase 3 Barcelona is entering, or is it phase 2?
We're can you hear me okay?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Because I don't have my mic cable anyway.
He headbutted it so much the last time on the previous series. It didn't survive.
Well, I'd love to get back to Johnny.
Yeah, he's coming back in. But
he's coming back in, yeah.
Yeah, it's just when we're talking, he pops out. He's just going mute. He's going to come back in, don't worry.
Oh, great. Well,
maybe while we're waiting for that, we might jump to Derek, because I know, Derek, you kind of had been talking about this a few weeks ago, and we didn't get to chat last week. How has the vibe been in California, or specifically in the Bay Area?
But like you know where we are, Neil. We're in a very sort of sheltered area. There isn't anything much happening here. Las Gatas is all boarded up. There was a protest march, about 2,000 people marching it the other day, and that was passed off very peaceful, and like people in and stuff like that. It was a nice atmosphere. Downtown San Jose, there's been a few issues, and then further up the bay, further up the East Bay, up past Richmond, these places, there has been a bit of trouble, a bit of looting and stuff like that. But the reason why I was flagging up the whole race issue is every week there was another story about somebody else. There was the Trayvon Martin guy down in Alabama who was out for a jog, and these two vigilantes shot him. There was a student or a nurse who was in her own apartment, and the police burst into the apartment and shot her. They were looking for a guy. It was completely wrong apartment, and the guy they were looking for was already actually in custody, and like the guy they were looking for had nothing to do with this nurse, but she was shot dead. So I kept hearing these stories, and then you could see the white nationalists, the MAGA hats with their big automatic assault rifles, and storming buildings and stuff like that, or storming the Capitol buildings in Michigan, and no response from the authorities. And it just felt like, I kept saying, it's like there's a tinderbox here ready to explode. And then when the video emerged of George Floyd, that was it. That was the spark that just like it lit up what has been bubbling away. To be honest, it's probably been bubbling away forever. But there was definitely a sense over the previous few weeks that.
Sorry to interrupt you, Derek. We have Johnny's getting back in there from New York. We'll just see if we can jump across to him while we have him.
Hey, Johnny. Hey, Johnny. Johnny, turn on your.
What I can do is
Here he is. Hey, Johnny, you all right? Who's that behind you? You're still on mute, Johnny.
I'd say there's probably background noise there with Johnny. So what we might do is let Derek, if you want to continue, I can spotlight Johnny's video so we can watch the video from Johnny while Derek is talking.
There's
so sorry,
Johnny.
Derek.
Johnny, can you hear us?
Johnny, you can turn off your mute now. Oh man, look at that. That's incredible.
This is Brooklyn, is it?
Yeah, it's just down by City Hall, down at the no, he's back in Manhattan. That's the courthouse.
Oh,
this
right.
is the other side of the Brooklyn Bridge. Johnny, can you hear us? Oh, Jamaica. How are you, lads? Can they see us?
I don't know.
Oh, look.
But is Johnny?
Making fun. Johnny, can you take your phone off mute? Oh, jeez. Hiya, Johnny.
One mic, listen up. One mic.
Now, it took me a couple of days to come out here. It took me a couple of days to even come out to any protest because, like you said before, we've been doing this. Our grandparents been doing this. Our ancestors been doing this. But what we gonna get out of this now, so that we don't have to continue doing this for the rest of our lives, so our children don't have to continue doing this for the rest of their lives and their children's children. As you go out there and you vote for individuals that come in your face and come in your neighborhood and smile in your face and tell you, vote for me. Meet with them on an ordinary basis. Go to their neighborhood and see what they're supporting. Really get to know the local leaders that you want leading you. Because what is important and what is apparent that's happening to us right now is that our leaders are failing us.
Yes.
And that is our local leaders are failing us.
So that's what's going on now.
Yeah.
So it's quiet and peaceful.
It is, yeah. Do you know any of the speakers, Johnny? No, he's off again.
Yeah.
Maybe Derek, sorry, you were talking there.
I can't talk at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Derek, so you're probably slightly closer to the ground than the rest of us. So we know we're seeing what the response is from DC, from the White House. In terms of what the state governors in California, the state governor in California is doing, Where do you think it's going to go from here?
Well, I suppose I think what's remarkable is there's like it is really grassroots, isn't it? There's like there's no leader that you can pick out. No leader has emerged yet, and I think a leader needs to emerge. But the fact that it's so spread out across all 50 states have had protests, and it really is a grassroots building movement. But I think any movement, you need to have these leaders to emerge. You need to have a figurehead, you know, somebody who harness the energy that's there to drive the change that's needed. I think it is a watershed moment, and like I think Trump's response was like obviously disgraceful and very, very worrying for American democracy, for the Constitution, and thereby for the whole world. To call in the military on his own people and to gas peaceful protesters for a photo op is just unbelievable. I cannot believe it's happening in the United States. But I think from all these different, like that lady that Johnny just had up speaking there, you're going to have leaders emerging in local communities, and like that's what's going to drive the thing forward, I'd imagine.
Yeah, John, you're always on the ball with this. I suppose, are you a bit like Derek that you spotted this coming?
No, I mean, it was a combination. I mean, the COVID, the lockdown, the economy, the disproportionate impact both of them have had. I mean, the hospitality industry here has been shut for a long time, and a lot of jobs in that severely impacted communities it also had. I mean, where I live is near a hospital in Brooklyn, and all we heard was the sound of sirens taking people to hospital, and seeing refrigerating trucks in your neighborhood. And the combination is it's not any. I mean, yes, it's a protest against police brutality and justice, but there's a lot of people here protesting a lot of different things.
Yeah, I think so too, Johnny, because I think it's not just a reaction to the sort of the police violence. I think it's just the pent-up frustration of the entire whole system that they feel neglected by, Well,
there's been a lot of commentary about the looting, but the reason the looting is happening in New York and where it is because for years, nobody hears the sound of breaking glass in Brooklyn out far out past Prospect Park or up in the Bronx. So nobody does nothing about it. So the protesters and the looters and the rioters, which are a very small amount of them, decided to break some glass in Soho and Tribeca and in West Hollywood. And they heard it. People heard it.
Yeah.
They could go up and burn the Bronx site and no politician would give a damn about it. But you start breaking glass in Tribeca, people start caring. So that's why there's been a huge reaction. And that's why LA did what they did. The white flight is a huge issue for New York. If white money leaves the city, it'll become like Baltimore. After Martin Luther King riots in '68, Baltimore was raised by its own black population, and it's still struggling today. So the government's here. If you start seeing white flight out to the suburbs, it hollows out the city. So what LA did was because the black community from South Central finally marched into West Hollywood and into Fairfax and Beverly Hills. And that's where they're protesting. And they said, we're going to take a protest to white America. And the Brooklyn protesters are here in Manhattan. And that's what's going to move it as well.
Yeah.
The social distancing thing is a big issue, though. People are trying to keep their masks on and do things like that.
Yeah. The mask compulsory there in Manhattan now or in New York?
They are. Well, it's considered sort of almost a lack of manners, or it's certainly. I mean, people are not running over to you and telling you to stop like they are if you light a cigarette in the park, but it's kind of a social norm, I guess, or something. It's just you try to do it,
Yeah, I suppose we all have to learn new manners now, anyway.
Yeah, but it's very hot. All right, I'm gonna go and walk over here. Okay.
Okay, just stay on mute. Don't cut off your camera. Just stay on mute. Thanks, John. Thanks, Johnny. There, John Ryan.
That's great. Fantastic. Johnny is in. Can do that, isn't it? It's great, the technology.
And actually, viewers, and John as well, prior to us going live, Johnny had actually climbed up onto one of the ramparts on the Brooklyn Bridge, and we could see the crowd coming from the Brooklyn side of the bridge to where he's going now. Like, it was actually on. Like, you get dizzy now. If you're afraid of heights now, you're screwed.
Wow. Yeah, I see. He tweeted actually just before the show started that from the bridge, it's an amazing sight.
Yeah, it is. It's brilliant. This is technology. Like, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Do you know what occurred to me today, folks? Right? Can you imagine if this lockdown happened in the 80s and we were stuck at home with one newspaper and one channel?
I thought we were already back
No
in the
fault.
80s the way things are at the moment here. Have we lost Derek? Is Derek fall? Derek is this is
Well, Derek will cop back in, I'm sure.
He'll come back.
His connection wasn't very good. Is Derek's in San Francisco, is he?
He's south of San Francisco. He's in the South Bay, Silicon Valley. Very fancy.
Oh, okay.
I see that
Beautiful.
the march, the Black Lives Matter march in our Dublin has been cancelled for the week. I think the organisers were afraid of legal repercussions. So I understand that the marches in Dublin have been cancelled by the organisers.
Okay.
It's worth noting that the government had recommended they didn't do it, but didn't take any action. The guards didn't take any action to prevent it. Now I heard rumours that there was a march going to go ahead in Galway, but I that was before the Dublin was cancelled. I don't know what's happening there, but
who when you say organisers, who are the organisers?
I'm not sure. I didn't catch that now in the media. I don't know if you got it.
I think Lucky's group were partly involved. You know, Massa, the
movement of asylum seekers in Ireland.
I saw that they were promoting it, so I think they're involved.
And because of the criticism around the last march being, the social distance wasn't being observed, etc. Is that the reason? Is that the reason?
What I caught in one of the papers was concern for legal repercussions if the march went ahead. As to what that means, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it looked like the last march had the blessing of the guards and the authorities and the support of Leo and whatnot.
Well, I don't know if I'd necessarily call it the support, because there was a lot of noise about the lack of social distancing, etc., etc. But
not from Leo or the guards or anybody. It was from people who were critical of the march.
Yeah, and I think once then our health officials start to speak out about it, I think Simon Harris as well, that kind of muted any more vocal support for the march.
Very, very hard, very, very difficult for people who have had Zoom funerals to see that march going ahead. You know, if you have to putting somebody down the grave, and then you see thousands of people marching together, that's a really tough thing to take.
Yeah, you've a good point there, because a lot of people they started the vibe I was picking up was that older people's lives matter too, Irish lives matter too, and I think then you're getting into an argument that you actually don't need and nobody wins. So I think they did very well, but our friend Marco was out there on Saturday on his own on Stephen's Green with his big sign and his sexy shorts on, I think it all happened very quickly as well. But you see, the timing was there for people to get up and who were actually looking for something to do and to react to something, to be part of something, because they have the time on their hands. They were looking for something to grab a hold of as well. But with what's happening in America, the embers, I'm absolutely convinced the embers were there in every street all along, waiting for anything to happen.
Derek, on the old elderly watching the marches, and I think Leo's picnic must have done it for them. I mean, I think whatever moral authority he had went that afternoon. And also I would think that was the final straw for them. I mean, if you can't hug your grandchildren and you've seen the guy having a picnic with his mates in Phoenix Park, and publicly as well, That
was quite a shocking thing, because then, the people were analysing pictures and that, but then Houlihan himself came out and said that the 2 meter social distancing was a guideline, which completely,
betrayed everything.
Yeah.
But there was a complete lack of decorum as well. about the whole thing, you know, like in such a public place. I mean, everyone's entitled to their private life, and I don't want to be the person that criticizes the man for having a private life. But there was a very sad lack of decorum. It was a bit like Ming and having his meeting with no pants on, you know, like you know, I mean, there was no aura of leadership about them, or.
But it's not even that. We were told no picnics. We were told to keep our, you know, outdoor.
Literally told no picnics.
You know, a short period is what was being quoted to us as when we are meeting in groups of 4 outdoors. You know, I mean, everyone's entitled to their privacy. I think, you know, there's an element of you should have known better. Leaders need to lead, set example. It's very hard to justify to people, you know, not to be following suit, who are out of work, who are dying to get back to work. You know, we're all feeling the pain. It's a little bit, it's a hard pill to swallow. And sorry, go ahead, John.
No, please continue. Sorry.
But we're seeing that kind of, you know, this kind of almost double standard in you know, again this week, you know, with the talk of phases being moved forward, the whole issue in the Oireachtas committee debate yesterday about travel, you know, I don't know who was quoted, but somebody said to the committee, you know, it's getting easier to plan foreign holidays for Irish people than to plan an Irish holiday holiday in Ireland this summer. You know, there's complete breakdown here of across the board, and you know, the integrity is being undermined further, and it's almost like they're losing control. It's not really the right word to use, but it does feel like we're reaching this critical point. But anyway, I'm touching a number of different topics there.
No, I told it. Sorry.
Do we think it was staged, by the way? Sorry, John. But do we think it was staged in the park, Leo in his shorts and with his friends? Do we think it was staged?
No.
For the photo op?
Yeah. I mean, to what purpose though, Vanessa?
But you see, he's so savvy about his image and about his social media and his presence online. You know, it just struck me as being so careless. I actually don't think it was by accident. That's all. Yeah,
but I think when you look back at him, his political career and his life, that's what he's kind of like that. I mean, you know, if we accept that he's playing a role, effectively, he's not, you know, he's not making these decisions. The decisions are made for them, particularly in a thing like this pandemic. It seems they're taking their orders from the WHO or whatever. So he just has to play this role. You know, he just has to be this guy. You know, this sort of Churchillian figure or whatever. You know, it's a role he has to play. And for me, the coronavirus was bookended. The kind of real crisis of it was bookended by first his dinner in Temple Bar. I don't know if you remember at the beginning of the virus, Vanessa. Do you remember we were being asked to socially distance, and then
the pubs in Temple Bar were open.
Yeah, no, but he was at a restaurant with like 30 people. I know his
pals, yeah.
Yeah, and then it just seemed, okay, well that's an oversight, and perhaps somebody should talk to him about it. And then towards just when, you know, he had played a fairly good sort of political role, he blew it by going to the Phoenix Park. And he said that the PR guy, he was giving this PR guy a heart attack. But you wouldn't blame the PR guy having a heart attack. All you have to do, Leo, now for this, you know, period is just
sit down and shut up. You're getting paid anyway.
Yeah, but not go to the beach or you know, not do those things just for these few months. But
surely there's a back garden. Surely there's a back garden in Phoenix Park.
There's loads of people that would offer him their private residences, you know, with beach access in Dalkey or somewhere like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or down in Wicklow or.
But I think
Leo, you could have borrowed my caravan.
Well, yeah, I really do think he's kind of a selfish guy, you know, and he wanted to do that and he did it. And
his way, yeah. Got his
you know,
way.
Nobody, you know, I mean, it was so inevitable that it was going to happen, that somebody was going to take a picture of it.
Just Janet in the chat pit there, she's saying, welcome back, John, but she's just saying, nobody stages those moves. Okay, that's fair enough, Janet. Not everyone has your jogger's fit body.
Well, one thing I know,
Uh,
one thing I noticed about Leo was I think it's obvious he skips leg day in the gym.
Oh,
Because
jeez.
fair play to him, he's a nice flat stomach and he's in better shape than I am. But I was looking at two little skinny legs on him. I thought you need to get working on leg day, boyo.
Derek gets an exercise bike in lockdown. He becomes an expert on everyone's fitness.
Yeah.
What Catherine Noon said last year about sort of Leo being on the spectrum is obviously, really offensive thing to say, but there is something. I mean, if you read, is it Philip Ryan's book on Leo, the book that came out last year?
Well, was it Philip Ryan wrote it, or was?
I'm not too sure. Anyways, I thought it was going to be like a hagiography, kind of like a rose-tinted look at Leo's life, but it's actually quite a revealing book, and it shows him to be that kind of person that just, is missing a kind of a sensitivity component or something in him. There's a character, there's a person in the book called Sheila Terry, and he betrays her so badly in this book that she actually leaves politics.
Oh.
He does it, and he does it in a way that even the authors of this book can't kind of, make go away, make it look nice. And he doesn't seem to realize it in the book that he's done this to her, and just moves on. So I kind of think that's just part of his personality. I think he's quite selfish and, insensitive to the feelings of others. Anybody going to that picnic with your mates, anybody would just sort of go, oh, hang on, shit, I'm the Prime Minister, I can't do this today, but.
How do you
Yeah,
see
but he was with. Sorry, but he was with his partner, Dr. Matt. I mean, surely he's got some sense. Like, are they just totally out of touch? Like, this is why I actually think it was staged. Sorry, Janet, but I do. I mean, if Dr. Matt thought it was a bad idea, he's a whole-time medical professional. He didn't think it was a bad idea. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like he's living in a goldfish bowl the same way Leo is.
Sure, but what would be the purpose of staging that? I mean, in terms of what did he want to get across that we could have
the same thing. The same thing he was trying to get across when he was in a restaurant with all the lads or at backstage with Kylie. I mean, he is very he's the one that obviously he's the first Taoiseach to have his to have their own Twitter account. That's so active. And Kenny probably had one, but. Do you know what I mean? That sort of really invested in managing their social media profile. Okay.
Yeah.
And like he is totally in tune with that because even before when he was in Enda Kenny's government, like he had the account Campaign for Leo. Like I don't believe for a second that they going to the park. It was all just out of naivety and. He was trying to be one of, a normal boyfriend or stuff like that.
Well, I think
I don't believe that. I don't believe he does anything like that. That isn't about how he looks or how he comes across. I don't believe he does a foot out of place like that at all. About what Catherine Noon said as well, I don't know what she was trying to get at there. But then you see, I also think we're all on the spectrum somewhere. So. Well, we have to be actually, if you think about it. So.
Well, no, I mean he's certainly missing a kind of sensitivity component there. I think
because they're out of touch, John. They're completely out of touch with the likes of you and me.
Yeah, well, that's why.
Since they are.
I know, but that's why I think he was in the park. I mean, I don't think it was staged because they tried to scrub the video off the internet as soon as it appeared. And they don't do that. And none of the papers covered it. RT didn't really cover it. The Independent.
It's because his knicker elastic was showing. It's not because, it's just true. I mean, can you imagine me going around with my knicker elastic up over my pants or my jeans? Like, come on. Imagine Mary Lou's underwear was seen over her skirt or whatever. You'd never hear the end of it.
Did I
So,
see
like,
that?
seriously, if you don't think there isn't a bit of management around this,
Did I see that Fine Gael are actually up in the polls though? Despite the
listen, you're feeding into my conspiracy now as well.
Well, we're very much a country
am I-
divided, Derek. Now, of course, I can only talk about what I read online, but I think we've mentioned this in past weeks with the show. There's very much a divide of people who won't step outside the door until they get a vaccine, and then there's a growing percentage of the country that are just jaded from the measures. They're seeing more countries opening up, and are eager to get back to some level of normality. So there's different views, I guess. So I haven't seen where they are in the latest polls, but certainly from what I'm reading online, there's a lot more anger and frustration being aired that would have been chastised a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I got to say, Derek, those polls are nutty. They've been mad for since before the election. I mean,
yeah.
The Red Sea ones, particularly, I don't think are very accurate. Oh, Johnny has run out of
Battery.
Right.
Yeah, so Johnny's run out of battery there, folks. So we won't be getting him back for the evening. But I can get messages to him if anybody wants something from the front.
Yeah, just on Spain and Ireland. Spain had the same policy regarding the nursing homes, and that's causing a lot of anger here. And
that's true in New York as well.
Yeah, New York as well.
Governor Cuomo is getting lots of praise because he's a great way of talking in the media. There's Johnny back now. Is he coming?
There he is.
But I just want to talk about the liability, the insurance liability for the deaths.
Hi, Johnny, you okay? He's gone. No. Yeah, John, go on in there. You're at the liability for the deaths in the homes.
Well, just Derek, you could probably confirm this. Cuomo did a deal to remove liability for these nursing homes for any deaths, insurance liability before the virus.
I didn't know that. No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, we were trying to find this situation in Ireland. I mean, sorry, this is Johnny. Well, they're saying something about Blasio, which is
Johnny must have plugged in his battery pack. That looks like they're walking back from Manhattan to Brooklyn.
To murder, to kill, innocent, black lives, matter. We built this shit. We built this shit. We built this shit. We built this shit. NYPD. Blood is on your hands. Blood is on your hands. Blood is on your hands. Blood is on your hands.
That's getting very pack mentality now in a way, isn't it?
You know what? There's something powerful about it. I love the people power. I love when people come together and stand up and are united like that. That looks impressive.
It does, but I mean, they're automatically repeating something, and I always think that's kind of a bit dangerous.
Yeah. That's what they do at protests, though.
Yeah, I know, but it's a bit too clannish as well.
Well, it'd be difficult to stand up and say I disagree.
Just
on a point of order there, please.
I know. Oh God, no! I mean, I think it's great to see people come together like that without, under their own steam.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
This is grassroots. I mean, this is people from the ground up. There's no national leader calling to do this, or there's no big figurehead. I think this is incredible to see.
Well, that's one of my big problems, the issues I struggle with in America. John, you've seen me post this a load of times about, but like over 330 American Nobel Peace Prize winners, and they can't find somebody to work for it. And Biden Trump is the best they can come up with. Like, I don't get that.
Because people become very wealthy without all the spotlight, you know. Like I think there's a dearth of leadership across the globe. I mean, like I asked this last week, but when was the last time you remember a politician that had any gravitas? You know, Michael D. Higgins to a certain extent has something about him, but I don't remember the last time we maybe Tony Blair before the Iraq War. The pre-Iraq War, Tony Blair, maybe. But I can't remember, like, the last time we've had a politician where you thought, yeah, he's the top of his game, or she's the top of her game. I don't see. I think a lot of people of real high talent, high caliber, have moved into corporations, and they can make huge sums of money, and without the spotlight, you know, be answerable to shareholders, make a fortune, and you can live your life. I mean, it takes you need to have some a certain type of personality that's willing to stand up and expose yourself to the public and expose yourself to the scrutiny and the papers and the television and the likes of us having an opinion on you. You know, so it does take a certain type of personality, and I think a lot of people who are very talented go, do you know what? I can make way more money. I don't have to have this hassle.
Yeah.
And maybe,
I don't think politics is attracting great people. Like I accept that.
That's it.
Yeah.
But can you?
Sorry.
I was going to say, what do you think? Can you name me any like politicians who have that sense of gravitas, who you would like stop what you're doing to hear what we're saying? Is there anybody that over the last 10, 15 years, Barack Obama had that charisma? I'm not sure. Like, I think the biggest criticism of Obama is we end up with Trump, you know. But like, I remember we were in New York and we were getting ready to go out, and didn't know who Barack Obama was, but he came on the TV, and we actually stopped getting ready to go out because he was so like spellbinding, engaging. You wanted to hear what this man had to say. He was only talking about hope and change, but he said it so well. But I don't know. I'm looking.
Yeah,
I'm looking
but Derek, at that level, when they're aiming for that level of office, it's completely staged. It's all manipulated. It's manufactured. There's 20 years in planning to launch a presidential campaign. And that's just to get on the ticket. Because if you go back to Bill Clinton's campaign to be the Democratic nominee in the early 90s, if it wasn't for the Jennifer Flowers thing, nobody would have heard of him. He'd never have got on the ticket. You know? Everything's staged. It's at that level, it's staged. It's pre-planned, it's organized, it's strategized over 10, 15, 20 years.
But still, I think Clinton was the underdog on the Democratic ticket. I think Clinton came from nowhere. He was working for himself.
He did. No, he wasn't even like the third or fourth in the primaries in the early 90s. But then the Jennifer Flowers thing happened, and suddenly it gave him a profile. And people in life, they love the Oscar Madison type character. It made him. Yeah. It made him, and he was a very popular president. John now is rolling his eyes there at the mention of the Clintons. Right? he's deliberately staying back from the camera, but like he was an incredibly popular president. You know.
We have from the chat pit. David has suggested, aside from Obama, Coveney and Bernie Sanders as two people who fit the bill. Derek. Simon Coveney.
Well, I think Bernie Sanders has shafted America.
I don't think he shafted America, but just I have it on all the time here, whatever. My 10-year-old daughter, every time he came on the telly, she said, "I hope he's not president because he's very angry." Now she's a 10-year-old kid, right? But so he was very off-putting for her. I like Bernie. I think Bernie's like his heart is in the right place, but he's never going to get elected.
No, I think he's a talker, and it was only the last day or so. I one of you can confirm that, but he's still a senator, and these massive $1 trillion packets of support that went out to sort of American businesses, and between the payroll support and the household support, like he could have actually just stopped those in the Senate. And he didn't.
Interesting though that Simon Coveney was suggested. And John, maybe you could comment on that. How do you feel about Coveney being one of our stronger politicians?
Well, Simon Coveney.
A suggestion from the chapter.
I think he was meant to be the Fine Gael leader. I mean, he was meant to be the Taoiseach. But I think that the party chose a combination of symbolic, for a mixture of virtue signaling. But they chose a candidate. They chose in Leo, somebody who reflected. Yeah, but somebody who reflected what they wanted to be rather than what they were. And Coveney is what they were, what they are. And I think like, look at Leo Varadkar, the ministers he's chosen, or the people he's chosen for those positions, like Regina Doherty. I don't want to discuss her personally, but to put her in social protection stuff seems almost kind of, almost aggressive move. And I think Catherine Zappone as well, at the minister, as Minister for Children, person who's childless and whose, idea of the family in her own writing is sort of, not of an Irish character, and
what do you mean by that? I'm not familiar with her.
There is, John is right there. There is a disconnect between Catherine Zappone and, let's just say, her constituents. And we have said before, well, Zappone for me has been as a minister has been an enormous disappointment. And we might have said this on the show before, John, when we were talking about women in politics and women leaders and stuff. And like she has been the biggest disappointment as a minister. And okay, her constituency didn't return her, but like this is where leadership comes in. Now we're talking about Leo. Any of those TDs that are ministers that weren't returned should have been replaced immediately and not kept on the books during this pandemic. And that would have been a very direct, hands-on expression of leadership. And he didn't, because if you look at the ministries that are led by people who were rejected by the voters, Catherine Zappone in Tuzla is in department with the Minister for Children, effectively, which is also Tuzla, which is under enormous pressure at the moment. And you have Regina Doherty in social welfare, which is literally putting bread on the table for 60% of the population at the moment. And you have agriculture, which has literally had a stranglehold put on it. And you have Michael Creed there, And so, like, if he was really serious about being in charge and being seen to be managing this pandemic, at least that would have reflected his true intentions, and he did nothing. The acting is just, it's acting.
I agree with you 100% that you shouldn't have a minister who lost her seat. But is it not the case that that's the Dáil has to vote on that? And has he got the power at the moment
No,
I don't
no,
think
no,
in his acting capacity, like
no.
I don't think he can actually like fire the cabinet. I think because then he would have to be he'd be
No, he
firing
can
himself then as
replace, he
well if
can
he was appointed
reshuffle
a
the
new
cabinet
cabinet.
anytime he wants.
But why
It's
would
up to
he?
Michael D to take back the seal, isn't it?
But why would he, Vanessa? I mean, he appointed them.
Yeah, but they weren't returned, so it's effectively enacting. Now, lad, you're feeding into my conspiracy here because I am absolutely still in the same place I was back in February. But I think Leo deliberately called the election knowing COVID was coming down the mountain on us. Just leave it
Can I-
out there.
Can I just
No
go back
point
to
to
John?
pretend. But
John,
John is shaking his head. Why are you shaking your head, John?
Oh, not about. I think it's about something else. I think it just
John,
a thought that it hit me.
Yeah.
can I just ask you? You mentioned something about Catherine Sabona's attitude to family. I'm just not familiar with what that is. What did you mean by that?
Well, she wrote a book about 30 years ago as an academic about, the role of mother, father, families, and it would be considered even radical today. Now, I'm not saying that she shouldn't be Minister for Children, but for a Fine Gael leader to appoint somebody like Catherine Sapone,
What was she suggesting? How did she suggest families should run? Can you remember?
Yeah, no, I mean, we could go through the whole book. It was about, I think it was the spirituality of feminism, it was called. Now, I'm not saying that I disagree with any of this stuff, but it was so contrary to.
It was all about self-love.
Fine Gael family values or whatever. I mean, it seemed sort of almost to run sort of contrary to that, to their values.
Do you know who's the expert on Catherine Sapone? Is Kevin Higgins.
Yeah.
He's the man to ask that question to Derek. But I remember in his house there quite recently, he produced one of Catherine Sapone's books. And like in any page you're flicking it, you find a line that like it's just laughable. She's big into self-love, by the way, making love to yourself. I don't think she understands how that interprets. It must be the American or Canadian in her, I don't know. But listen, it is what it is. The whole thing has just gone beyond any sorts of sense now at all. They just, like, we're still waiting to get testing. And I just wondering, John, you're great. Now, you're always on top of this. Has anyone seen a patient go in and out of the City West facility yet?
I'm not allowed to go that far, Vanessa, so I can't possibly.
No, but even online or something.
Well, I think the bigger issue is, has anyone seen, we're not seeing, people going in for cancer testing and I'm seeing tweets from GPs. There's one GP tweeting about a patient of his who was sent for a colonoscopy that was cancelled before, that was cancelled due to COVID, and he had to send him to A&E, and turns out he's got bowel cancer. And I guess there's more anecdotal stories like that around the country, but we're now in a period where, statistically, we're seeing more cancer deaths in Ireland per day than we're seeing COVID deaths. And there's still, certainly as far as I'm aware, unless you folks are more up to date than me, but there's no plan to get testing back up and running. And, certainly serious cancers like bowel cancer and that,
Well, it's the bottleneck has just gotten tighter and tighter and tighter, and it's what do they do to get out of it?
Well, I mean,
HSE can't manage the waiting list it had. So how's it going to manage it now?
I mean, a GP friend said to me that the second wave is not going to be coronavirus. It's going to be all these other. It's going to be this, like you say, that bottleneck of illnesses that aren't being presented, because there's not a queue of patients at GP doors, because there was that fear, going outside originally, but that's just not there. Certainly, I during my own GP, who's during normal times, it's a nightmare trying to get an appointment because he's so busy. And when I did call to get a repeat prescription, they were asking me, "What time would you like to come in?" And I'd never experienced that in my life. So we, as each day goes on, it's only going to get worse and worse and compound the problem.
Yeah, but you see, the valve originally was the private sector private hospitals and the National Treatment Purchase Fund for the public patient. That's gone now. So, I mean, are they going to have to send patients overseas to get
Well,
treated?
yeah. I mean, my own mother, you might recall that the aneurysm saga and the hospital treatment, 2 years ago. So she's had a number of appointments pre-COVID that were cancelled because she's another aneurysm that they have to treat. Fortunately, it hasn't popped yet, but obviously that's the stress of COVID. And so she has a date now next week to go in for surgery. So it'll be interesting to see if that goes ahead, and or if it's going to be cancelled again, and what that's going to look like. So she certainly has a level of apprehension. There's only 2 facilities in Ireland that deal with neurological surgeries, one in Dublin, one in Cork. So we're quite eager to see what happens. Usually you get a call the day before to tell you whether you're to go in or not. But that's something that could have been quite serious if something had happened in the last couple of months. And that's just one story.
Mm. And Neil and Vanessa and Derek, I'm going to have to do the papers.
Oh yeah.
So
is there any end to it all, to the lads, at this point?
No, I just wanted to say sorry, Vanessa. Derek, great to see you.
Lovely to meet you. Yeah.
Great to meet you, and hopefully next week or whatever.
Are you not coming back to us, John?
We're all going to Barcelona to have pints on the terrace with John. That's what we're going to do.
Well, we're 10 years this month, next month, Broadsheet. So we've got to organise something. It'd be great to, maybe.
But I think the viewers are going to see how spotless you keep your kitchen, John. So they're all going to egg you on for a house party in yours.
Well, it's all kind of surface. I mean, it's all stuff behind the cat. Everything's in drawers.
We'll put up a poll on Broadsheet. Is that a virtual background, or is that John's real background?
I was going to say though that we began the Broadsheet on the Telly was the first kind of Zoom style thing.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair,
it was.
In Ireland anyway, in an Irish context. Now everybody's at it.
Now everyone's doing it.
Yeah, but they're going bankrupt. They have the receivers in, John.
Yeah, I was going to say that, the Journal and Joe and all those sites, they've really spent millions and millions and millions over the past 10 years.
Well, I don't know. They got lent. They got lent millions and millions. Whether what they spent it on, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's much to discuss. Will you say hello to Johnny if he gets back on from New York?
Are you going to come back in with the papers up, John?
No, but I'm going to send them to Neil when they're
okay.
up. Okay, so great to see you all.
See you, John. Nice to meet you.
Thanks a lot. Sorry if I rambled. And
no, it's good, to
Johnny.
See you. It's good to see you back.
Cheers, John.
Thanks, guys.
Right.
John likes to leave before the entertainment slot. He gives us his hour and he's gone.
Well, at least we know he's still alive. Viewers, he's still alive. We didn't kill him.
Somebody out there has won a bet. Somebody's out there won a bet.
Yeah. Any other cracks off, folks?
That's it now. That's all.
That's all. The star's gone.
More the same. I got to play a bit of golf.
Yeah.
So that's always good. 8 pars, a birdie, and then 9 double bogeys or worse. So,
is if you're playing golf, Derek, is lockdown being respected, or shelter in place, I should say, is it being respected in the Bay Area?
Well, look at the protests. People are prepared in the masks, but in general, it is. People are a little bit more willing to stop and chat or meet in the park. I think when I'm jumping off this, we're going over to the park to meet some of Leah's friends. It'll be we'll socially distance in the park, but we're doing that. We sort of have a trip to LA booked the end of the month. Some of our friends from here moved down to LA, and little ones birthday party, and haven't seen each other in 6 months. So we said we'd take a trip down there. It's the end of June, and from tomorrow, I think swimming pools can open back up. So we're hoping that we'll be able to get her back into swimming and back into her gymnastics classes and stuff like that, Any sports that
A lot of movement
That-
on there. There's a lot happening.
a lot of movement, yeah. So lots of little things happening. Hopefully, I'd say next week now I'll be able to give you a much clearer picture of how things are. But
It's interesting. Like we had the government did their conference today in Ireland about, mentioned the accelerating of phases. So what's interesting is they said certain retailers can open now from next week. So retailers that have a door basically on a main street can open, but if you're in a shopping center, you can't.
yeah,
So Penny's, for example, is allowed open, which is 3 weeks earlier. But then Penny's comment said we won't be open next week because we're not prepared for it. So it does show that certainly for a lot of sectors, if not all, although I do believe that there is some communication going in some industries, that there's no communication with heads of those industries to say a heads up, you may get the opportunity to open early, prepare accordingly. So
yeah.
the blind leading the blind. I don't know,
Yeah.
it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. But yeah, I don't know, Vanessa, is there talk of public playgrounds opening in June? Did I read that right? Or
I actually think they have to, whether they want to or not is another thing. I think they have to, because the kids now are they're officially now on holidays in normal circumstances. The Leaving Cert should have started today, by the way. Isn't that right?
I mean, you got to ask with the Leaving
Yesterday.
Cert. You got to ask with the Leaving Cert. If the schools are supposed to reopen the end of August, then why hasn't the Leaving Cert been scheduled for the end of August? Like the education side is.
You see, the whole thing now at this stage is making it up as they go along. Actually, it's gone beyond making it up as they go along. It's almost waiting for their next instruction, what you're going to do now, what's next to do. And there's a very strong sense of that, because we're shut down now. The official line from the start was, we're shutting down, we're locking down, so that the health service can deal with the surge. And we're opening Croke Park, and we're opening Park and Keeve, and we're going to have a hospital in City West, and testing all these places. And none of that's happened. None of that has come into play. Yet we're still here waiting to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't think they have measured the disruption at all, or the impact.
I suppose it's going to
my sister. Sorry,
there's Johnny there.
it's going to take a brave person to actually call it though.
Hey, Johnny. Johnny, what's they saying? Something on the NYPD, is it?
They're doing a moment of silence now for police brutality.
Okay.
They're asking the NYPD to take a knee.
Oh, take the knee, NYPD. Take the knee. Are any of them?
He's got to be quiet, Vanessa. That's what a minute silence is.
Is that?
I know that police in some of the states, some of the
Really low on
cities.
battery. I'll see it again. I got to go on low on battery.
Okay, Joe. See you later.
I was just going to say to there, Neil, it's going to take a brave person to actually make the decision to open up. Because if they get right, then they're a hero. To get wrong,
that's very fair, and I think we sometimes forget that as Joe Public, to be able to say, I don't think anyone's envious having to do that. At the same time, we talked about the whole 2 meter thing, suddenly is a guideline rather than a rule. The government has regularly said they followed the WHO advice, but the WHO now in their literature are saying
they're backtracking.
They're saying 1 meter, minimum of 1 meter. And I've seen in a tweet, I don't know if it was posted on Broadsheet or was in a tweet, but there was somebody had posted HSE literature for somewhere down in the regions that had a 1 meter social distance reference in it. So it was definitely published in the literature somewhere. So we are not necessarily, we have the expertise internationally. We can see what's happening in other countries where they are opening up. Some countries have opened up in Europe, just using Europe as an example, because that's all we can do. But some countries in Europe with higher R numbers than us, that's the rate of transmission, and they're not seeing second waves yet. They're certainly ahead of us with opening, and just generally speaking, so while the decision making is hard again, and part of it as well is that I guess there's no overriding EU authority that's giving hardline recommendations either from a political and economic standpoint. Travel being a good example. So
which I'm glad at. I don't want to give the EU more power. That's one thing I definitely don't want to see.
Oh, you take the man out of Carlo.
Yeah, you know what?
I'd like to see them. I'd like to see the ECB open up a little bit of quantitative easing for the ordinary person. But
I think it's I think we discussed
let the
this
ECB
before.
give some checks out.
Didn't we talk about this before about the EU with Luke? And I think there's an opportunity for the EU to demonstrate it was always a good idea. It was always a good plan. I think now is the time for that. You're talking about quantitative easing. I think if there was more of an effort. Well, I'd never call anyone ordinary, by the way, and I don't believe there's any ordinary Paddy for a start. So, I think now is the time for it to prove itself that, it's like 50 years old now, between its various rebrands. But I think now is the time it has an opportunity to prove it was always a good idea. And you're talking about quantitative easing. I'm not sure that's the answer. But I think there's an opportunity now for, say, you look at Spain and how they managed it in Spain was different to how they managed it in Germany, and which outcome was better.
Well, we know about Sweden. We remember we had the guest on from Sweden a number of weeks ago, and we now have seen that the Swedish government is saying they recognise they probably should have locked down. Obviously, their death rate now is extreme. I don't know if is it the highest in Europe.
Yeah, but you see, you won't really know any of that for another 12 months when you go through the second wave. Like, I'm not sure locking us down was a good idea. Enforcing, even giving it a legal backbone. I think social distancing. If they enforce that more rigorously, there was all the 2 meters legally, and you couldn't, you had to always have gloves on and change your gloves and masks and all this. I think we would have managed it a bit better that way. The locking down after, in the end of March, I think was too late. If you were locking down at all, it should have been at the end of February.
Yeah, and to be fair, a lot of countries, there was the guidance at the time wasn't necessarily as clear, and other countries, where some other countries know better. That aside, though, the Oireachtas, and actually someone's made a good point in the live chat we'll get to in a second, but in the Oireachtas debate yesterday about travel, that was asked about the quarantine, why it wasn't introduced a few months ago, and paraphrasing, it was said, well, we know that the infection would have got into the country anyway, yet we're putting a quarantine in place now when other countries are looking to lift theirs. Again, this integrity thing. And but just from the chat bit, JDF Reality has said from the news today that Simon Harris said there was a slight potential increase in the transmission rate of COVID-19. So that's the R number. So I think we were down to 0.4 to 0.5, I believe, 0.6, and it's increased from 0.4 to 0.7. Now there's still a 0.4 between those two numbers, so there's a slight increase. What's more interesting about it is that they said that potential increase isn't attributed to the behaviors of the public. So people, generally speaking, have been obeying the lockdown, which means they don't know where it's coming from. I'd be interested to see how much of that relates to, what's happened in the care homes, the meat factories, and the clusters like that.
You see, if you go back there and you look at the care homes and the meat factories and where there was high concentration of people, right, as well as those that were more prone to it, like that will give you an idea of where if they were a lot more rigorous with social distancing rather than the need to lock down everywhere. Because if you look at, say, where the operational level of, say, the meat factories and the food processing plants, they are quite intensive. They're not like offices that have cubicles around the world, stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? If that was enforced earlier, because Channel 4 did a very good piece, Pádraig O'Brien, I think, last week from the Moy Park facility in Northern Ireland, it's the biggest employer in Northern Ireland, private sector employer, and how they were a bit slow to sort of deal with this. They've lost staff members. Now people going to work with the screens beside them, the plastic screens on the factory line, and it just occurs to me like that if social distancing and that approach to managing a pandemic was enforced more than just straight lockdown, that's it. Let it get to a stage where it's just straight lockdown. But then, I mean, how successful or I don't know, I'm trying to find the word now, but I mean, how certain can a lockdown be if you have your ports open, your airlines open?
Well, I mean, if you look at Spain, now I'm not forgetting the economic side, because there was, no payments made to citizens in Spain, unlike ourselves. But obviously they had a very severe lockdown, but their rates and they've closed their borders. Their rates, or their infection rates and deaths has dropped dramatically. In fact, I know of one particular region in the southeast that's popular with tourists, and the local hospital, which would cater for hundreds of thousands of people, hasn't had an ICU case of coronavirus since the start of May. So there are other regions as well. Now, obviously Madrid, and is probably is still on that path to recovery, but they had a severe lockdown. There was ATVs on the streets, and you weren't allowed to leave the house at one point unless you were walking your dog. That's not a joke. And they had a lot of times for people over 70 to be able to go outdoors. It was very harsh, very strict. But now they have opened, they have terraces open, as John mentioned. There's a lot more happening than there is here. So they took that severe approach first, and take that hit, and I guess time will tell if that's.
It's going to be interesting to see the numbers after all these protests across like all 50 states in Ireland, London. It'll be interesting.
But I think it's
if there's a big spike up.
It's important now just to sort of keep reminding ourselves that these protests are not the ones we saw, like that's going on in New York at the moment that Johnny's at. That like these aren't anti-lockdown protests, that or challenges to the lockdown, or that it's anything like that. Like I do think in 12 months' time, when Europe gets a good look at itself and seeing how they manage this, a singular message between them all probably would have helped, would have been a stronger, a better way to go, rather than Italy being in one position. And they were left on their own for a bit. There was a number of weeks where I don't think people paid them a bit of notice.
But Italy did strangle. They did filter the information getting out for a period of time because they were worried about what inevitably happened, and that was the shutting down of borders. So they did.
But you see that in its own way betrays the cooperative ideals, that the EU is allegedly founded on,
And I imagine there's big learnings that are going to come from this, but this is something that's going to be on our agenda for years. I mean, I
hope not. I'm at the end of the road now with lockdown.
Well, the US, how do you pronounce it, Derek? Fauci, the CMO, Fauci, the equivalent CMO equivalent in the US, he has said that he believes there'll be a vaccine ready. The good news is there'll be a vaccine ready at the start of 2021. The bad news is it'll be like the flu vaccine, and you'll have to get it every year. That's what he's anticipating. So, if that's the case, this is something that we are going to be talking about year in, year out. So it's not going to go away. As to whether that means social distancing will go away, that's another question. There'll be no shifting in coppers, Vanessa, anymore.
Yeah, but I'm too old for that.
That's the first thing that'll come back. That's the first thing that'll come back.
Yeah, but I mean, I imagine that's all gone. Like the snow session, that's all gone. Yeah. Well, I hope it's not, but I suspect that that's a casualty of this new life. But like, just to kind of make just like to give you a demonstration of how past this shit now I am, right? On Broadsheet today, there's a thread, and do you know what they were selling on the thread? It was like a promo, right? Do you see the picture behind me, Derek?
Chocolate. Oh, Jesus, Derek.
Yeah, this is a
Chocolate.
cast of someone's arse.
Well, it's
And
not their
a mold.
arse. It's a
They're
bit more
mold.
specific. It's their anus, Derek. It's Edible Anus, I believe, is the company.
Yeah,
Oh,
The UK
God.
chocolate maker.
yeah, this is what we've become now. And you were
I did not
cribbing
need to know
about
that.
people, and Neil, you were cribbing about people getting into sourdough starters and bacon and all this, and you were cribbing about having to buy flour. This is where we've ended up, lads.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's, I did not need to know that.
Taoiseach going around with his knicker elastic showing and his moves. And now we are here taking casts. The company that sell this chocolate, by the way, will actually sell you a kit to take a mold of your hole. Sorry, there's no other way.
Oh my God. Okay, so
Yeah, this is where we are, lads.
a few weeks ago we were talking about vibrators.
As Maria Bailey would say, humanity has been crossed. Enough. I'd rather have the virus happening now at this stage. I am now. I'm way beyond that, actually, because I said that a few weeks ago. I am, lads.
That's gas that she's suing the newspaper. Like, what a brass neck.
What's funny about it? Sure, if she walked in dog shit, she'd sue the dog. Like, come on. Do you know the way everyone calls someone who complains a Karen? Yeah, I think it's an American thing. I think they, in Ireland anyway, they should just be a Maria, by the way. It shouldn't be Karen at all. It's a Maria.
Careful now.
I meant to say, do you think she'd sue me?
I meant to say earlier, I should have got the picture ready. My sister went back to work, and she's in Canada. She's near Vancouver. Now she's in a town, population the size of maybe Tala or Lucan.
Is your sister a hairdresser?
She is, yeah. She's gone back to work, and she sent a picture today of her in the PPE gear. I can't share it on the screen. Maybe I'll share it next week. But she has the face mask on, and what a welder might wear. Or I guess a surgeon might wear, like a clear mask from forehead right down to her neck, and the face
like
mask on as well. Yeah, I don't know what you call them.
I don't either. I'm just making it up as I go along now.
You still had her makeup on underneath it, though. It's like you went to a lot of effort underneath it. She had all her makeup on underneath it.
Oh Jesus! Yeah, I'm sure I wear makeup. Yeah, I mean, there's not left. Like, I mean, you can't get your hair done. You can't get your legs waxed. I mean, like, they have to do something. And I'm not much of a housekeeper, so like everyone's getting new curtains and doing their windows and their gardens and sure. I've let mine go to bed. It's a bit like me bits. They're running wild. Oh, lads, I tell you. No, well, I'm not suited. I'm not suited to this lifestyle at all. Do you know the people in America that go off grid? I don't know how they do it. How the fuck do they
There's
do
an
it?
author who writes fiction books, John 12 Hawks is his name. Look him up. He lives off the grid and he makes commercial books. I want to ask, what's your predictions for the next seven days? We won't be shopping in pennies anyway.
Well, I don't shop in pennies anyway.
Vanessa, what are you saying next? What's the predictions for the next week?
That's do you know what? Something really weird and unusual is going to be like the thing of the week. Like for the last 2 weeks, okay, it's been the protests. Something that just happens out of nowhere that has nothing to do with the pandemic at all or the virus. I think something else is just going to just trigger. I suppose the ground is there because there's no activity other than news on the pandemic and what Trump is tweeting. And we should have got John. I might get John back there now to try and talk to us about Twitter. But I think something is going to come out of nowhere over the next week. I don't know what it is. That's just going to occupy. It's going to fill all our feeds in because there's a huge vacuum out there. You know, people are done with Netflix. They've seen all the shows they want to see. They've watched all the movies they want to do. They've baked all the bread they want to make. You know, they've all their little tasks done around the house and everything. Something is going to just...
That's Mystic Meg's prediction for the next 7 days. Thanks, Mystic Meg.
Natural.
Well, I'm actually sorry, Neil, but I was going to actually agree with Vanessa. I think there's starting to be a few little cracks in the Republican Party at the moment. Small. General Mattis came out yesterday and had a cut off Trump for the way he's behaved and said he never saw a president who was so divisive and who made no attempt to even try and unite the country. And that was that was the first sort of hammer blow. A heavyweight person in the Republican Party having a go at Trump. And then Senator Murkowski came out today and she said that she doesn't think she could vote for him. She's undecided whether she's going to vote for him or not in November. So that's another little crack. And I think it's going to be an interesting week to see what happens with him and with whether there's any more little hits on him from within the Republican Party. I think that one of the nice things that has happened over the protests has been when you saw police chiefs and police officers and protesters kneeling together and marching together. And that's kind of a way out. That's how this thing
more of
ends.
a parade,
right? But
than
I
a
think
protest.
and we're together, and like there's a contrition from the police for what one of their own did, or what many of their own have been doing, and an acknowledgement that there is racism within the police forces. That's the starting point, and then I'm wondering. I said earlier on, like there's this vacuum of leadership. I'm wondering over the next week, next fortnight, will 2, 3, 4 people emerge who could sort of lead this movement forward? I think that's
Derek, quite what you're talking about is leadership. It's so much correct. I can't believe America doesn't have better than Biden v. Trump or Trump v. Biden. I don't believe that. It's a very sad state of affairs if the country that's produced the most gold medal winners in the Olympics and the most Nobel Peace Prize, the most Oscar winning writers ever, the best they could come up with is Trump v. Biden. I don't buy it. If that's the state you're in, lads, stay where you are. I don't want to know you, right?
Biden comes across as a thoroughly decent fella. Let me just finish. Biden comes across as a thoroughly decent fella. And what he will do is he will bring a sense of decency back, I think. But I do agree with you. He's no heavyweight. He's a flyweight in terms of intellect and what have you. But at least it would be a return to decency.
Yeah,
and I think that's what he should run his campaign.
Well, it's old-fashioned politics.
America decent again.
But I think you're calling decency is actually old-fashioned politics. Whereas this is the first political post Trump has ever had. Do you know what I mean?
Well, no,
Biden would have come up through the ranks as a professional long-term career politician.
When I say decency, I mean just general decency. Trump hasn't got an ounce of it. He hasn't got an ounce of class. You know, everybody knows. I don't have to say.
No, he's brash. He's brash and he's gaudy and
he's worse than that. He's worse than that. He has no sense of like
public service.
No sense of decency. No sense of empathy. No compassion. And at least Biden has that. He can he has empathy with people. He can put his arm around somebody. He can sniff their hair. But it's,
I'm not sure that's what they want from Biden at the moment. But what the point I was trying to get to was that I actually think somebody might replace in the Republican Party replace Trump on the ticket. I wouldn't be surprised. Now I know John Ryan is looking at this now and he's going. He's pulling his hair out now and he's going bananas now when I say this again, right? I think Trump is going to step aside and somebody else is going to step in on the Republican Party. I don't think he wants another 4 years of this.
Oh, I think he wants to go on. I think he has no problem cancelling the election, and I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that. I think part of what happens on June 1st is like a tester to see, will the military do what he wants? What's the reaction? He's talking about dominating the streets. He's talking about, showing your power, showing your strength. This guy doesn't want to go anywhere. He has said he admires President Xi in China, who gets to be president for life. He has said that he wants people in America to sit up to attention the way the people in North Korea do to Kim Jong-un. He has said these things. He said he has this Trump 2020, Trump 2024, Trump 2028. He wants to create this dynasty, and I firmly believe that. And then he comes out and says, "Well, I was only joking," but he keeps dripping in this idea, this notion that the election is not going to be legitimate.
I know all that, right? I mean, I know all that, and I think that's just his ego running away on him, and he loses the run of himself, and then he sort of takes a breath and coughs and goes, Jesus, what did I just say there? Because he's never been managed in his life. He's never had a boss. He's never had to answer to anybody, So I wouldn't be surprised if he steps aside or he is replaced by the Republican Party. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I know now certain people are going to talk
the Republican Party that will replace him, if any. But
yeah,
they had their chance with impeachment. They didn't do it, and too many of them have nailed their colours to the mast. They've rode in behind them. They've invested too much in it. I think it needs. I'm genuinely concerned when I saw that on June 1st, where they brought in the military to
when the looting starts, the shooting starts.
Those peaceful beforehand, and then he did this. He had a helicopter flying over New York, the Black Hawk helicopter. It's frightening what this man can do, and he's never been told no in his life. And now he has the power of the military at his command, the commander in chief. This guy does not. He will not really. His lawyer, Michael Cohen, the guy that got locked up, the fixer, was paying the money to Stormy Daniels, the hush money.
Yeah.
Stormy Daniels.
He
said under oath. He said under oath in the Senate, or the House of Representatives, whatever it was, he said under oath in Congress that Trump will not leave quietly. If he loses, his fixer said that about him. I can't believe it hasn't got more attention. I'll find out the link and I'll send it on to you. But we've been warned. And in 1933, people thought that the Reichstag would be able to control Hitler, and that didn't work out so good.
Yeah. And
I think thinking you can control Trump is fucking dangerous. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that, but it's dangerous. I mentioned a few moments ago, there are some cracks starting to appear. General Mattis came out and said, what Trump is doing is wrong, and the idea of using the military on the American population is wrong. The military have taken an oath to the Constitution, not to the president, and that's a real promising sign. Murkowski coming out and saying that she doesn't think she's going to support him, that's a promising sign. Some of the primaries that happened during the week, there is a Republican challenger going against him who took 9 Republican primaries, but there's nobody of that's a real challenge has stood up to challenge him. But the fact that 10% of the primary voters didn't vote for Trump is an encouraging sign. But he has this strongman mentality, dominate the streets, create battle spaces. I'm a tough guy. He actually thinks, right? He actually thinks that walking over to the church with the Bible the other day makes him look strong. His spokeswoman.
Well, that made him look comical.
Comical.
I thought it was. I thought it was quite comical.
Kayleigh McEnany said that he was like Churchill. This is like Churchill when London was
Oh, stop it! No. Do you know what? I thought if you watch it again, where he's walking across the road and he's all the Secret Service. If you look at him, if you picture him in black hair, shiny black hair, what does it remind you of?
Stan Laurel. Laurel and Hardy.
No, I was thinking more of Kim Jong-young.
On that note, we'll draw a line in the sand. I'll leave the last word to the chat pit. Where, oh my God, I'm after losing it. There we go. Trina, Derek has said that Biden, a decent fella. Derek, do your research. So you've got some homework for next week. And also, Janet's of the view that does any of this really matter because would America change? On that note, I want to thank the Queen, the Queen of Dublin 12.
Stop it! Don't be calling me the Queen.
The Empress of Dublin 12, Vanessa Foran, the King of San Jose, King of Silicon Valley, Derek O'Donoghue.
Black Lives Matter.
We had Johnny. Thanks to Johnny, he's out there in New York who covered the protest. Thanks, Johnny, for doing that. And of course, the man,
the maestro,
the man who makes an entrance, John Ryan. It was great to have John back. And he's invited us all to his house for a party in Barcelona. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Those of you in the chat pit for keeping us on our toes with your questions and comments. I'm not going to name names in case I miss someone. Thank you.
Before you click close, right? There's a show starting. It's called Selling Sunset. And it's about a real estate agent or whatever you call them in America. And they sell only in Hollywood on the Sunset Strip. And it's obviously it's reality TV, like, but it's sort of desperate. It's Desperate Housewives, but only worse, only LA style. If you can get a look at Selling Sunset.
Selling Sunset, okay. Okay.
You will understand why we should just say we're never going to America again. That's your fault completely.
Derek can go on it live when he's down in LA if he gets there at the end of the month.
I would say Derek could get away. He'd just put on his Carlo jersey and they'll just think he's like the guy in Times Square that plays the guitar in his underpants.
Yeah.
Naked cowboy.
I actually thought I saw a Carlo jersey in one of the protests, and well, it wasn't. It was like Ivory Coast or somewhere. But I got excited.
Yeah, but the thing, the GA Illuminati that started about 30 years ago, lads with their jerseys the first one happened was an Offaly O'Carroll's jersey on the Jerry Springer show. And the Offaly crowd started trying to get themselves spotted throughout the world, at cricket events and stuff. Well, that's my pal, the Turk, that actually the group of lads that started that. They're trying to get their jerseys shown around the world.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, good night, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back if YouTube allows us next week. They blocked us last week because we used up too much bandwidth. So thanks all.
Yeah,
enjoy
and
your weekend.
Neil will have a cast of his.
I will. He will not.
One of those for you next week.
He won't. He won't. All right. Good night, folks.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining.